Have you ever really thought about how that sandwich you had for lunch is actually powering your brain right now? How does food become you? Well, today we're diving deep into the microscopic world inside your cells to uncover the amazing secrets of how your body turns food into fuel. And to get there, we're going to start by solving a pretty common mystery. When someone loses weight, where does that fat actually go? I mean, it's mass, right? It can't just disappear into thin air, or can it? Let's find out.
This isn't just some random science trivia. The answer to this question is unfolding inside trillions of your cells every single second. It's the story of the engine that's running you right this very moment.
Okay, so to crack this weight loss mystery, we need to shrink ourselves down. I mean, way, way down, and take a look at the incredible machinery that keeps us all going. The technical name for this whole process is cellular respiration. Basically, it's the series of chemical reactions that unlocks the energy in your food and converts it into a form your cells can actually use. And as a byproduct, it releases some waste. Now, you're going to want to pay really close attention to that waste products part, because that is the master key to solving our mystery. So, this all-important job of converting fuel to energy doesn't just happen randomly inside a cell. Oh no, it takes place in a very specific, very important little structure. Think of it as a tiny power plant. And here it is. Say hello to the mitochondrion. You probably remember this fella from high school biology as the powerhouse of the cell, right? Well, that cliché is 100% true. This is ground zero for energy production. So what is this usable energy that we keep talking about? It comes in the form of a molecule called ATP, short for adenosine triphosphate. The easiest way to think about ATP is like cash for your cells. It's the body's universal energy currency. If a cell needs to do literally anything, it's got to spend some ATP. This is a perfect way to visualize it. On the left, you've got ATP, which is kind of like a fully charged battery, packed with energy. When your cell needs to get something done, it snaps off one of those phosphate groups. That break releases a burst of power. And what's left over is ADP, which is like a used or a dead battery. The entire point of cellular respiration is just to recharge those used ADP batteries back into fresh, new ATP. So how does the cell actually do that recharging? Well, the whole process can look a little intimidating, but you can really just think of it as a three-step assembly line. Each stage preps the fuel for the next, all leading up to one massive energy payout. And here's the assembly line itself. First up, we've got glycolysis. Next, it's on to the Krebs cycle. And the grand finale is the electron transport chain. So let's walk through it, one step at a time. All right, our journey begins with glycolysis. Now, what's really interesting here is that this first step doesn't even happen inside the power plant. It takes place out in the main part of the cell, in a substance called the cytoplasm. The name pretty much gives it away. Glyco means sugar, and lysis means to split. So we start with one molecule of glucose. That's our sugar. And in this first stage, that glucose molecule is literally chopped in half. This creates two smaller molecules called pyruvate, and in the process, we make a tiny bit of ATP. It's a quick, small profit, but it's really just the appetizer before the main course. Okay, on to stage 2. Those two pyruvate molecules we just made are now transported inside the mitochondria, the power plant, where they're going to enter the second part of our assembly line, the Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle is basically a little molecular merry-go-round. It takes the fuel, systematically rips it apart, and harvests the energy from its chemical bonds. It makes a little more ATP, sure, but here's the part you need to see. Look at that. CO2 being released. As the cycle dismantles our fuel molecule, the carbon atoms that formed its backbone are released as waste, and that waste is carbon dioxide. This is our big clue, folks. And now, it's time for the main event. All the high-energy electrons we've been harvesting in the first two stages are now carried to the final stop on the assembly line, the electron transport chain. This is where the magic really happens. This is the big payoff. All those electrons get passed down a line of proteins, kind of like a game of hot potato. And every time an electron gets passed along, it releases a little bit of energy. That energy is then used to power a pump that drives this incredible little turbine, that thing spinning on the right. And that turbine just cranks out ATP like there's no tomorrow. So, after all that, what's the final tally? Well, from just one little molecule of glucose,
This entire process can generate up to 38 molecules of ATP. That is an incredibly efficient little engine running inside of us. Okay, we've toured the assembly line. We know what goes in and we know what comes out. We have officially gathered all the clues we need to go back and finally solve our original mystery. Where does the fat go? This right here, this is the whole story in a single sentence. This is the chemical equation for cellular respiration, and it summarizes everything we just talked about, from start to finish. So let's break it down. On the input side, you have glucose from your food. And by the way, fats and proteins jump into the same process. And you have oxygen from the air you breathe. And what do they become? On the output side, you get water, you get that super useful energy in the form of ATP, and there it is again, carbon dioxide. And there it is, the big reveal. The mass, the carbon atoms that make up the backbone of the fat and carbs you eat, doesn't just vanish. It gets broken down, converted into carbon dioxide gas in the Krebs cycle, and where does that gas go? You breathe it out. You are literally exhaling your lost weight with every single breath. Okay, but what happens if one of the key ingredients goes missing? This entire process we just walked through is called aerobic respiration because it needs oxygen. So what does your body do when oxygen isn't around, like when you're in an all-out sprint? Well, things change a lot. When there's no oxygen, it's called anaerobic respiration, and the process basically gets stuck after step 1. It can't go into the mitochondria. The result? A pathetic energy yield, just 2 ATP instead of 38. And the waste product isn't CO2. In our muscles, it's lactic acid. That's what causes that burning sensation when you're working out hard. In yeast, the waste product is alcohol, which is how fermentation gives us beer and wine. It really goes to show just how critical oxygen is to keeping our engines running at full power. When you step back, it's just an absolutely beautiful system. It can take something as simple as a sandwich and turn it into the energy that creates your very next thought. So that leaves us with one last thing to think about. We know how the engine works, but what happens to that engine when you consistently feed it the wrong kind of fuel?